Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Superman issue 31 by Joshua Williamson, Eddie Barrows, Eber Ferreira and Alejandro Sanchez. The Man of Steel's DCKO tie-in adventure begins here as just before the shocking events of DCKO issue 1, Superman and the Justice League confront the Quantum Quorum, making it known that he doesn't trust them. Time Trapper says that he led Superman to Booster Gold and the Absolute Legion in the future, hoping that they would be enough for the Man of Steel to trust him with, but Clark knows that he's not telling them something, wanting to believe what is coming, but he needs more to go on. Trapper tells Superman that they have a vast history together and their lives and deaths are connected, so trust between each of them is irrelevant. Since he's seen the truth, the dark side is coming and the only way he can save the world is to show no mercy. So far, the DCKO tie-ins I've read have not disappointed in the stories they are choosing to show, like they are using the page space to expand Scott Snyder's event and flesh out some pieces that he had to get through rather quickly in the opening first issue. And being it's a Superman-centric event, I'm sure Williamson's tie-in will end up being a must-read. In the present, Superman leads the gathered heroes against the Heart of Apocalypse's first gauntlet, barely making it into the 32 selected fighters for the tournament. The night before, though, at the Fortress of Solitude, Superman finds Kelex almost completed the renovations of the fortress after Amanda Waller attacked during Absolute Power. Clark apologizes for being away for so long, retrieving a Sunstone crystal and activating it, calling forth the AI of his father, Jor-El. It's been a while since we've actually been to the fortress in this book, and it's great seeing it come back into its former glory, and we get to see a little bit more of it, and I imagine we're going to see a hell of a lot more of it in the coming issues, thanks to Lois and what she's up to later on in this book. Clark asks his father about Krypton, wondering if there are any files on Darkseid, but Jor-El says no files exist. The same goes for the King Omega. Clark theorizes that not all of Kryptonia's history was in the rocket that came with him when he left Krypton, and Jor reveals that some information was deemed illegal, and there are pieces of history that Kryptonian scholars never transcribed, and some were just left in the memories that weren't filed at all. Clark knows that the AI isn't really his father, and he knows he really can't answer this question, but he asks him anyway, asking why Jor only ever saved him. Jor says that it was because him and Lara loved him and wished to save him, and this is a bit of an odd question since surely Superman would have asked this question or researched it a bit before now, especially when he first came to the fortress. It's just kind of an odd thing to ask him now. I know why Williamson is doing it, because he's having his Superman go through this immense pressure that we saw in that first issue of DCKO, and he's trying to grapple with the fact that he's going to have to do something he has been told he cannot do in his life. He's going to have to show no mercy, and he's trying to sort of grapple with the fact that he's going to have to do some heroics that are maybe even beyond him, and this is him trying to rationalize what he needs to do. I do like that instead of having this happen off page and just mentioned, we are seeing it here on page and it actually play out. Clark is dealing with his own survivor's guilt and beginning to think that there was more to him being put on the rocket than just saving him from Krypton's destruction. And it's an intriguing thread to pull on, and no doubt Williamson and Snyder have something interesting at the end of the thread to, round all of this out, and I just can't wait to see what that is. Clark asks why they never made a larger rocket, but Jor reveals that space travel was illegal on Krypton and knowledge from outside their world was forbidden, so he was forced to build the rocket with the limited resources he had in secret. Clark asks what he would do with unlimited resources to build more ships and what he could have done, and Jor simply answers that he would save everyone, giving Clark the answer he came looking for. Over in LexCorp, Mercy oversees Parasite's recovery, telling Rudy that he's lucky his powers absorbed some of Doomsday's energy before the villain ripped him in half, since that's what kept him alive and now he's healing up nicely thanks to it. Rudy is more than happy to be on the mend, finding himself a bit stronger now thanks to the energy he zapped away from Doomsday, having not felt this full in forever. I'm glad Parasite wasn't totally killed by Doomsday 10 issues ago. He's become a bit friendlier and is actually looking to right his wrongs and also kind of become a little bit of a hero. He's kind of friends with Superman now, and I'm glad he's getting a chance to continue that story at some point. Superman comes to see Mercy, who knows all about the fire pits erupting all around Earth. Superman wants to know what she knows, so Mercy fills him in on how LexCorp scientists have picked up fluctuations from Earth's core. knowing something powerful is building down there. Mercy has Superman follow her through the facility, knowing that while LexCorp is cut off from the JLU, she knows the League and the Titans have been preparing for something, and so have they. She reveals the Super Ship, a giant interstellar ark meant for scientists to study deep space, which thanks to Brainiac's technology can be retrofitted to fit an entire city, maybe even a whole country inside. Superman is happy with the design, wanting a dozen more made, and he knows some people who can help get it done quickly. But hearing this alarms Mercy, wondering why they would need 12 ships. So I don't really know what's going on with Mercy right now, since her story arc was completely cut at the knees thanks to all of this Absolute Legion DCKO stuff, and we kind of are dodging the fact that she, activated a clone of Lex to kill Superman, Lois, and their family, and she kind of went insane there for a minute, and that's kind of all being swept under the rug here, and I get it, it's, a big event, it's wartime, Superman is getting everyone he can to help out to fight the common enemy, but that's kind of something we really needed to have squared away before all of this started. And it was like half done. He cut communications with Supercorp. He disbanded Supercorp. It's now LexCorp again. All the stuff. So we got like halfway there and then it just kind of stopped. I'm like, okay, well, what's going to happen with Mercy? The Mercy side of stuff. And we never really got that. And now they're just kind of working together again. It's kind of like nothing ever really happened. And that's really the only disappointing thing about this issue. Later, back at the apartment, Clark tells Lois about the League's plan to go to the heart of Apocalypse and fight in a tournament. Lois can't believe Clark is trusting Doomsday of all beings since he wanted this for Clark all along. Clark tells Lois that various plans have been put into motion with Steelworks, the Titans, and how the League are also training for this tournament. But Lois knows that they are doing all this and are planning because they might lose. Clark knows that they could indeed lose, and they need to make sure Lois is safe, but she doesn't want him to make sure that she is the only one safe. She wants to make sure everyone has to be safe. I'm loving that Williamson is continuing this through line of immense pressure on Superman for this event, because this is a Superman event. Scott Snyder has said time and time again, it is a Superman event. Everything rests on his shoulders and he's beginning to feel like he can't do it because it is so big. It's such a big undertaking. But everyone around him is just so confident he'll win because after all, he's Superman. He can do anything. He's got this and he needs to have a bit more confidence in himself. The talk is interrupted by Ma and Pa Kent arriving, and Ma talks about his visit to the future, asking if he found out what he needed to, but Clark admits that he didn't get what he hoped for. Jonathan is reminded of when his son was 8 and he drove the tractor into the barn, and the look he has on his face now is the same look he had back then, meaning something is wrong. Clark wants to explain, telling them that they are all going on a trip with Lois and their friends, but before that, he wants to spend some time with his family alone. This is what I was saying about Williamson filling in some of the gaps from DCKO, and here is one of them with Clark being with his family, getting to see where Mara and Pa Kent are during all of this and kind of squaring that little plot away since we knew they were sort of in the background there, but so we know they're going to go on an arc somewhere. Soon all of these super ships are constructed and are readied above Metropolis, and Clark tells Lois that he is taking the Dawnstays with him, but Lois wishes he wouldn't joke, since she really is worried since this is exactly what Time Trapper warned them about. Clark knows Mercy is taking care of Doomsday and the Radiant Bottled City on one of the super ships, so she might be able to investigate Doomsday's past for them, but Lois doesn't trust her, wanting to keep an eye on her, but wishes there was another way to deal with this. So I'm guessing the line about Doomsday's past and investigating it will be kind of a running plotline through this book and how we're going to dive into the whole King Omega stuff that was set up in the Omega Protocol issue. That's like all the background with the Time Trapper stuff and how he factors into this, because I was really quite wondering how that would all be deployed, being Superman is off in the tournament, so he's, kind of preoccupied, but I like that it's kind of resting on Lois and the rest of the Superman family to figure all of that out, and that's how they're getting involved in the storyline. It's actually quite smart. Clark says that he talked with Jor-El about Darkseid and the King Omega, but they didn't have any records thanks to outside knowledge on Krypton being illegal. Hugging Lois, Superman tells her that he can do this tournament, but not until he knows that they are all safe. but Lois assures him they will be, wanting him to keep his ears open so he'll be able to hear them cheer him on. After sharing what could be their final kiss together, Superman leaves to join the League in the tournament as Lois joins Mercy to get ready for takeoff. The super ships all head into space filled with the people of Earth, but Mercy soon finds one ship is not accounted for as Lois takes a smaller craft to the Fortress of Solitude, apologizing to Mercy since there's something Superman said that's been bugging her. She smells a story in it. Lois confronts the AI of Jor-El, telling the program how she, her son, John, and Jor actually spent some time together in space, and she learned on that trip that Jor-El cannot be trusted. She makes it known that she isn't there for help, she's there to interview him, asking about Darkseid and the Heart of Apocalypse. This is a neat pairing that we don't get a lot of, Lois and Jor-El, and Williamson is building on their past interactions during the Bendis era very well here, using that as a base for the untrustworthiness that Lois has for him, and putting his own story on top of that, you know, the hidden history of Krypton and her exploring that and having to go through Jor-El to get there. He's not just leaping into it with his own established stuff, he's using things that a former writer put forth in an interesting way. Lois knows that while certain knowledge was illegal on Krypton, there had to be records of what was illegal, since how would they know what was and wasn't illegal? So she wants to know what those records are. As Superman battles his way through the gauntlet, Lois tells Jor-El that his son is currently fighting to save the world and doing what Jor couldn't do for Krypton. So he needs to help give them the knowledge that they need for the Heart of Apocalypse. The AI, however, falls into a logic loop, repeating that it has no records. Lois thinks that she broke it, but before she can leave, the AI of Lara appears. Knowing Lois Lane loves her son, and when she sent him away, she had hoped that he would find happiness and someone like Lois. Lois knows they never really have talked before, but Lara knows that she still triggered her program, so this is something that is needed to happen. This is another cool pairing that we never get, and Williamson even acknowledges it here too, that they never really talk. And Lara and Lois's chats are far and few between, but there's always something so interesting about them, as there's always a profound sadness to them. Like Lara can never and will never actually know who Lois is. This is just an AI. The real Lara will never know her, and vice versa. And there's a sadness to that. Like, Lois will never learn who her mother-in-law is and actually get to know the mother of her husband or anything like that. And there's a bit of sadness and a bit of melancholy to that. Lara reveals that she was a historian on Krypton before it was destroyed, and while there are no records of Darkseid, all of the worlds Krypton encountered talked about a legend of a destroyer that will end everything. She calls this being the final god, and while their scientists hoped to make a champion to stop them, they were the Omega and they must be the Alpha, which she thinks Doomsday was created to be, as his powers of rebirth and recreation are in direct opposition of everything Darkseid is and stands for. This is such a cool reframing of what Doomsday is, and as I said when it was initially revealed in the Omega Protocol special, which we saw Lara and Ursa unearth all of this stuff about Doomsday and the King Omega, this is like the most interesting character development Doomsday has ever had since his creation back during the 90s, and it's a wildly interesting take on a supposed villain and kind of reframes everything we ever known about the villain. You know, was he actually a villain? Was he just acting out these pre-programmed things to keep himself alive so he could eventually fight Darkseid? This was a thoroughly interesting rabbit hole to go down, and I can't wait to see what Williamson has in store for us. Lois knows that Clark needs to talk to Lara, wondering how he can get her to him, as Clark suddenly comes crashing through the fortress roof, smashing into the crystalline ground. Lois rushes to check on her husband, but finds it's not actually Clark at all. It's Superboy-Prime, who tells Lois that he's the wrong Clark. Lois helps him up, and Prime explains that while he was trapped in the future, he managed to hold off Darkseid's army. They soon overwhelmed him, but during their fight he found out what happened to the rest of the Legion, and he's gotta tell Superman it. Lois plans on filling him in on what's happening in the Heart of Apocalypse, but it's too late as they are both blasted by the Absolute Legion version of Sunboy, who knows all about Superman and the League trying to capture the Heart of Apocalypse, but it's too late as Darkseid has already won and Prime was left to die by the heroes. So Williamson actually said that Prime was going to be making a comeback at some point. I just did not expect it to be so damn soon, like literally the issue after he went out in a blaze Blaze of Glory. It's leading to an exciting story though, with Prime getting to team with Lois for a change, and Lois is really getting all these great team-ups this issue, and I love Williamson is making her a bigger player in these tie-ins than she usually is in these giant crisis level events. Usually she kind of sits on the sidelines a little bit, but I like that she's actively getting involved in the story and being part of a plot. Prime knows that he will stop Sunboy since the villain is forgetting something, the last page reveal. Sunboy doesn't know what he's talking about, as it's revealed on the final page that Lois has regained her superpowers thanks to Sunboy blasting her with his sun powers, meaning Superwoman is back. And this is another thing I'm really surprised is happening so soon. Superwoman is back, and hey, maybe we can actually get some form of finality to her arc, since, as I said before, it was kind of cut off at the knees there thanks to this event, and now it's coming back because of this event. It's kind of a strange set of situations there that, like, why did they take her powers away just to give them back in just a couple of issues? Very strange, but I'm just happy that Superwoman is back, since it was an interesting take on the character, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Williamson pits her against Superboy-Prime while also teaming them up together. That's going to be a very interesting dynamic. Superman issue 31 was another damn fine DC KO tie-in issue. Fleshed out a lot of the stuff Scott Snyder set up in the main event book, filling in a lot of the gaps in Superman's story while also setting up its own story with Lois and, surprisingly, Superboy-Prime and their exploration into Doomsday's hidden past. Williamson did a great job carrying over the immense weight and pressure of the event on Superman, being that this is all a Superman-centric event, and now we get to see how that's rippling out through into his family members. And this seems to be a thing across all of these tie-ins so far, or all the ones I've read so far. They are all really doing a good job of selling the scale of this event and not undercutting it at any point. Like, this is a big deal that this event is happening across the DC universe, and all these books actually make it known. So I applaud these tie-ins for actually doing that and actually doing the work that needed to happen to have that happen. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10.